Hi friends! In this video I wanted to share the process of my recent sketchbook painting, but mainly I want to talk about how my watercolor sketchbook routine helped me progress this year. I only have one page left in this sketchbook, and that got me thinking about how drastically my practice changed over the past 6 months, and it was all due to keeping a simple watercolor sketchbook. I feel that that's a topic worth discussing, so I'll try to sum my thoughts up to 5 tips, and as always you can find timestamps in the description. This sketchbook is the first watercolor sketchbook that I ever bought, and I have it since 2020, but the majority of the works in it were done in the past 6 months or so. It's the Strathmore 400 series watercolor sketchbook filled with cold pressed pulp paper that works very well for my practice. I want to discuss what is so great about keeping a sketchbook. I get questions like, why working in a sketchbook you cannot sell the piece afterwards, or what if you mess up a piece then the sketchbook is ruined, and that kind of concerns that I feel I had myself before I learned to appreciate the sketchbooking process. I even had art collectors in my studio feeling disappointed when the artwork in the sketchbook was what they wanted to buy, but naturally I refused to rip a page off the sketchbook. Isn't that silly? I think I bought the sketchbook originally with a weird intention to have finished looking pieces in it and then showcase them as a preview to my portfolio during studio visits and exhibitions that features my best skills, and this last thing I found on the 3rd page already that is absolutely unrealistic vision. I would have to plan the pieces that go in the sketchbook to be able to sustain the artwork quality standard that I feel like I set with my very first illustration that I thought turned out very well. And this is my very first tip for you if you were contemplating to start a sketchbook. Set a clear and maintainable purpose for your sketchbook right from the start, and then remind yourself of that purpose every time that you try to make it into something else. So I didn't have a clear vision and a clear purpose when I started the sketchbook, and that's why first 11 pages took me 1.5 years to finish. Once I finally realized what's holding me back to use the sketchbook properly, I was able to complete another 12 pages in 6 months. I actually do one full sketchbook page in watercolor every week, but I use multiple sketchbooks now, so not everything went into the Strathmore one. Each has a different purpose and I'm exploring different things in them. So what was holding me back was the same thing that holds you back from finishing any artwork ever, and it's that invisible pressure to produce a good piece of work. Sketchbook has to be that kind of home for your artistic thoughts. It wants to be that best friend that tells you it's okay to make mistakes and break the rules of a medium, or even completely skip details, color, or just do that fun art piece that you always wanted to do but you were afraid that people will stop taking you seriously. With that said, my second tip for a successful sketchbook practice is to treat your sketchbook as a place to let off steam and rehearse. I started doing that after those painful 18 months during which I did my best to produce beautiful artworks inside the sketchbook and couldn't keep up with the pressure. After all, I've had enough pressure from clients doing commissioned works, and there is always a pressure even when creating finished pieces that nobody ordered. I think everyone experienced that situation when they bought an expensive setup and then they were afraid to use it for years just because they didn't want to waste it. The sketchbook is the last place to put this kind of pressure. I think I've ruined a page completely, and then I didn't touch the sketchbook for months. I was being so frustrated. It was doomed, and this feeling of having nothing to lose finally taught me how to be free. I suddenly had no problem being fearless and risk during my painting process. After all, who cares if this approach doesn't work? It's just a sketchbook work. It wasn't too long from this mindset to discovering new approaches and new combinations that I normally would never have gone for if I was playing it safe. Of course, not all of the paintings worked. Of course that I'm still terrified when starting a new piece. Always unhappy and sad when the piece fails, but it doesn't prevent me from starting over again tomorrow on the next page. In the old sketchbookless days, I would have stayed frustrated and outblocked for days, weeks even. This is my biggest argument for why to give sketchbooking a go, even if you don't feel like it. It just keeps the ball rolling, and that's the best supporter of your creative practice. My third tip is to create the most convenient material setup possible for sketchbooking practice. I learned to take my sketchbook with me when I travel or stay somewhere else than my studio, because ideas and mood to paint can strike anytime, and it's great to be able to use that moment to actually create something. My quick setup is just a tiny transportable watercolor palette and a brush, mechanical pencil, and a tiny jar for water. This helped a lot to build a regular painting habit, and yes, even people that actually make living with their art don't necessarily practice every day, and even they often wish they practiced more. So this is not a problem just for beginners learning to build a consistent practice. My fourth tip is not to be afraid to take notes in your sketchbook. The picture you paint there itself is already a visual note for you to build upon later, but if you include even written thoughts or phrases that you can associate with anything about the picture or the idea, then it helps you so much later on when you decide to do a larger piece based on the sketchbook work, or can help you remake that sketch into something else. I don't take many written notes, to be quite honest. I always underestimate this and write less than I feel I should have later on. And I promised to shortly mention the process you're seeing in this video, so let's do that. I'm learning to paint darker skin tones in watercolor and often try to explore darker backgrounds, and in this painting I got a combination of both, which attracted me so much to the reference picture. I found it on Pinterest, and you can find my inspiration board linked in the description. Painting with dark colors in a watercolor medium gets tricky, and I need to do at least 20 works to get the hang of it, but I just loved the warm atmosphere of the picture, merging browns and violets and pinks, and then offset that with that hint of minty green. I was able to be very free with watercolor effects, as this composition didn't need many details at all. It was absolute joy for me to paint this picture. I have been painting a lot from inspiring reference pictures lately, and it's all part of me trying to discover what I like. I guess once you start painting and see the endless possibilities and color combinations, it gets so confusing, and I just want to try a lot of different subjects, skin tones, stylizations, and lovely pictures that people pin to Pinterest from different sources. Help a lot to skip to that part of preparing concepts for the piece and simply just paint. I feel like this is a very important part of anyone's art journey at one point, is to just rehearse the technique and build a visual library. And so this is my fifth tip for your sketchbooking practice. Put a minimal amount of preparation into it and paint the first thing that sparks joy, as Marie Kondo says. Maybe this doesn't happen to you, but my sketchbook practice used to be a lot like this. On Monday, I remember I wanted to sketchbook paint, but I'm looking for my paints and brushes. On Tuesday, I get my setup out, but I don't know what to paint. Maybe my cat, but she wouldn't stay still, and nobody from my family wants to pose for me. And so I go online online to find pictures. And this is where I get stuck for 3 more days trying to find the picture to paint. Will I go for the easy looking reference or the one I always wanted to try painting but looks kinda tough to get right? I think I've already talked about this before, but having a Pinterest board where you pin the references that you already like is a procrastination killer. I just open it, sit down and paint it just like that. After all, my sketchbook has 25 pages, and after I fill it, I just get another one and so on. And here is the summary of my thoughts about sketchbooking. Your sketchbook can be whatever you want it to be, but let it be your best friend rather than your judge. Set a clear purpose for your sketchbook right from the start and make it a space for exploration and rehearse. Do not put a lot of things between you and your sketchbook. Make it a no-brainer to reach for it whenever, as well as for the paints and brushes. Keep this minimal setup nearby to help you create a painting habit that is hard to break. Keep a Pinterest board and fill it with references that inspire you. Rule should be that you only put stuff in there that instantly catch your attention and make you want to paint them. But when it's time to paint, then switch your brain off the selection mode and pick the first one your eyes land on and just paint. As Seth Godin wrote in The Practice, which is one of my favorite books, we don't ship the work because we are creative. We are creative because we ship the work, and it works every time. The idea of keeping a sketchbook, along with that whole mindset about creative practice it represents, is probably a single most effective tool that helped me level up over the past 6 months. I feel ready to do larger pieces now thanks to my sketchbook, and I will start by taking a few concepts from the sketchbook and remake them into something that is more detailed and elaborate. I also hope that my video helped you a little bit with your decision to start a sketchbook if you were considering, and if you weren't, I hope that now you are. And yeah, I'll see you in another one. Bye!